Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dave. I'm back. I'm out here at the fig bush. I talked about it the other day in my garden tour piece. So we decided to come on out here and take a peek, and it looks like we're starting to get a few early figs. So that's pretty exciting. This time of year, this fig bush was actually pruned back to about 5 feet tall. This spring it had gotten a little out of hand and I pruned it back heavily. I am looking at it right now. I'm 6'1". It is every bit of 8 or 9 feet tall again, so it's put on about 3 or 4 feet here just in one growing season. I'm going to have to prune it back even more heavily this next year. The goal is to get it to set lots of fruit, obviously, but we want it to spend its time setting fruit, not growing more and more tree, especially if it's going to grow tree where I can't reach the figs. How awful would that be? If only the birds could reach the figs. As you can see, these figs are developing. They're every bit of 7-8 feet off the ground. I can probably get them and pull them down, but they're well out of range. In addition to this one, we've got another one right there. That is another brown turkey fig, same as the one I was just looking at. And it also was pruned down to about 5 feet tall. And it is also as well somewhere in the 8 to 9 foot range right now, after this nice hot summer that really helps mimic, I suppose, their Mediterranean natural habitat. I wanted to show you a couple things though. I have been lax in working with these two fig bushes this year, and honestly, part of that is that they do so well where they are. I give them a trim in the spring, and they kind of just go to town. I keep them in a bush format. There is a central leader. You can actually see where I trimmed it back, and all this growth. There's at least 3 feet of growth there that has happened since this spring. I have a couple strong central leaders, but I do let it bush out. It is starting to ripen nicely. In fact, I'm gonna reach in here and we're gonna pull the first one of the year. And there we go. That is, the sun, just brutal. It was nice and overcast earlier, but now it's starting to really get really heat up and get sunny. So we've got lots of these figs, and then we've got lots of these that are developing and growing. As you can see, there's a couple right there, a couple bulbits, and there's a whole bunch of growth right in here that you can see, hopefully. And like I said, I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing the screen, so hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing. Each of those, again, figs developing. So from the time it starts, and I'll show you, because I saw one here a minute ago. Okay, so right here, my finger's behind it. Hold on a second. We're gonna prune we're making a command decision. We're gonna prune a few leaves here, and I'll tell you something we do with those leaves. I would be remiss while I'm doing this if I didn't tell you that figs have an incredibly milky sap that is latex-based, latex similar, that some people really can have issues with. They just like latex allergy. They can see that all that milky sap there. They can really have a problem with that, causing irritation and rashes. If you are unsure and you have a fig bush, by all means, or you buy a new fig bush, please wear rubber gloves until you're sure of how you react. I have been around these two bushes for so many years that I am well aware that I am not allergic to the sap. It is a little sticky though, so that's kind of annoying. Maybe I could wear that. Isn't that what they used to wear, fig leaves? I don't know. Maybe better get a bigger one. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. So This, right in front of my finger here, if you can see it, that is a tiny little fig starting. So here's one, as we can see. Now that's a little more defined, and we can see that's a tiny little fig. This is just in its infancy. Here's another one right over here. Again, right in its infancy. This time of year, mid-August though, these really aren't going to help us any. A fig takes 90 days to mature. In 90 days, we're in the middle of August, we're going to be in the middle of November. And November figs are not going to be forming. It's not nearly warm enough here and the overnight temperatures are cool. In fact, this bush will have lost many of its leaves, if not most or all. So if I'm really gung-ho, I know that a fig that just formed isn't going to make it. So we can go through here, and this really can be an all-day job, I swear to you, because these bushes are so vigorous. Here's another one right there, and you pull, just rub them off, and those small figs, the bush isn't putting the energy towards them anymore, and they will create the environment where so many of the other figs will mature more quickly. The other thing that some people do, I don't generally fool around much with, but you can go through and see all these apical buds right here. So let me go back to the one where I pulled the leaves off earlier. So right here, this is the apical bud, this is the growing end. And what we can do is if your bush is plenty big enough, which for example mine is, you can trim that right off this time of year. Now you don't want to trim that off in the spring. You don't want to trim that all. You want to prune in late winter, but you certainly don't want to dwarf the plant too much in the spring. But once we get to a point where the plant's grown enough, we can see this plant has grown a good 12 inches, this branch here. We would pinch that off, trim that off with a pair of shears, stop that from growing, and suddenly, instead of the plant putting so much energy towards growth still, especially this time of year, it would suddenly start putting all of its energy into, there's another one, I see an apical bud, there's a bud right there, and we would simply trim that off and keep that from continuing to grow. There's another one right there. They're everywhere. Every branch has one, obviously, that's how it grows. So trimming those off redirects the energy for the fig suddenly into fruit, and into, most importantly, oops, I had a vine grow. Look at that. Hey, had a vine grow. Look at that bad boy. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry, I can be a little ADD at times. The plant will, instead of growing, what I'm trying to say, I think I've beaten it to death, is it'll redirect its energy towards ripening figs. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to look for some figs. Look at that, there's a little bounty right in there. And I'm going to pluck some figs here and get my first figs of the year. Look in there, there's another one. And I may have some figs with cream here. Yeah, they look like they're doing very nicely, don't they? Again, I said in the other video, I'll say it again in this video. You cannot beat a fig tree or a fig bush once it's established for being prolific, as long as obviously you're in the right environment. They do need 3 or 4 months at least of warm temperatures, but prolific, easy to care for, no pests. I've never seen a bug or a disease or a pest, and hardy. They can die right back and then bounce right back as soon as the weather starts coming up again. Oh, I was going to tell you, the other thing we do is these young leaves. So like I've got this end here where I pinched them off before, and I actually threw those leaves into my little bucket here. You can take these leaves and actually dry them, rinse them. I usually soak them just to get some of the sap out. trim the stem off tight, because you don't want any stem, and you've got just the leaf left. And they make a really interesting tea. And the tea is, you can look it up, fig leaf tea. It's got all sorts of claims to it, but it does work very well. It seems to help lower my blood sugar. I am a type 2 diabetic, and this is something that does seem to help. And so I use it more in the winter. I'm not a huge hot tea person in the summer, for obvious reasons. But we take these light, see if you look at those, hopefully you can see that difference. This light green leaf versus that dark green. These darker green leaves, they get tougher. They get a little bit different flavor. But these light green ones, they're very, the tea is very light. It's very, not floral, but very earthy, kind of plant tasting. Green tasting, I guess is the word. I'm not a tea connoisseur necessarily, so... But again, there's another one where that leaf is, you can see, lighter than those leaves behind it because they're newer. And those are the ones you want to get. They make a fantastic tea when dried. Dry them, grind them, and then use them before they start to get, when they get bigger like this, you can even feel them. They get tougher. They get more latex in them. They just seem to get more difficult to deal with. But that's just an idea. That's something I do. Not promoting anything, not making any health claims, get all my disclaimers out of the way, not telling you should do it. And again, of course, if you work with figs for the first time or the first few times, make sure you're wearing gloves. Make sure you learn. If you have any sort of latex allergy, you're going to have an issue with figs because of that sap. But otherwise, enjoy. There's lots of varieties you can find, and there are so many different ones for different things, and you can enjoy. Really, it's hands off, and it's just free fruit and easy fruit. So thank you, as always. Stay safe, stay prepared, and this is Dave out. Thank you.